Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for watching and joining us today. We call these Friday morning chats enlightening conversations together, is what I like to call them. And it is an opportunity for us to get to meet each other. So, what I like to do is I like to highlight some of the members of our community and give them an opportunity to share their passion and what they do and their knowledge and their wisdom. And so, if you're interested on the announcements tabs, there's a list of speakers. I think right now we're good until the end of October, maybe beginning of November. But if you're interested in joining us for one of these lives and doing a presentation to the group, feel free to check that out on the announcements tabs. I'm Sarah, and I am blessed and humbled and grateful to lead this wonderful community of women awakening together. And today's guest is Kristena, and she's going to talk to us about relationships and communication skills, and also how to rewire our brain, to let go of some of those negative patterns from her perspective. You know, we are all on this spiritual journey, and there's many paths up the mountain. And I think that listening to different women with so much wisdom explain things to us in their terms, from their perspective, is helpful and enlightening for all. So let's welcome her. As you log in and you start to watch live, please say hello on the comments. Let us know you're here. And as we chat, then feel free to share what resonates with you. Feel free to ask any questions, anything like that. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hey, well, thanks, Sarah. This is an honor to be here today. And I will have to say that I have really enjoyed the times that I've been able to do yoga with you and to learn from you. So great opportunities. And I appreciate the opportunity here to share a little bit about what I do. I'm Kristena Eden. My business is called Core Living Essentials. And I help people with relationships of all kinds. And I do that through cognitive behavior therapy and also through rewiring the brain. We so often get caught up with all the things that we have learned from our past that sometimes we don't realize that they are not really serving us. So if you don't mind, I would like to share a little story about a 2-year-old boy. And I'm sure most of us have had experiences with little kids, or maybe have seen little kids and how they act in other situations. But this one particular 2-year-old boy took a marker and scribbled all over his mother's white couch. And she caught him doing that, and she was very upset. So what do we as mothers do when we catch some of our children destroying something that we have worked so hard to get? We could possibly scream or rip the marker out of their hand, or maybe tell them they are bad, or maybe we cry. Whatever the case is, this little 2-year-old boy has to take this experience that he would just live through and interpret that. So how would a 2-year-old boy interpret this situation? Maybe he would say, my mother is afraid of markers. Maybe he would interpret that markers are bad things. Maybe he would interpret this as that he's not a very good boy. There are so many ways that he could interpret this because he really doesn't have the experience of a lot of life situations that we go through. So let's just say that in his interpretation, it was put into his subconscious thoughts. And our subconscious thoughts are good to a big degree, because if we know that every day we need to get up and we need to brush our teeth and we need to comb our hair or take a shower, we need to get dressed, we don't even have to think about that. It's just automatic. Well, anything in our subconscious mind is automatic. and it's fast. It's faster than the conscious mind. And so when we have these experiences and they're stored in our subconscious mind, they come to the surface when any similar situation arrives. Now, let's take this little 2-year-old boy. When he made it to junior high, he was in his class and the kids started throwing markers around just for fun, a marker war, playing with markers. He screams and he freaks out and he hides under his desk. Why does he do that? To us, that may seem really bizarre, and yet in reality, to him, it's very real, because his subconscious mind somewhere has stored that markers are scary and he needs to hide from it. So every one of us, as we go through life, we have to interpret everything that happens in our lives. Sometimes we interpret them incorrectly, and those incorrect interpretations are stored in our subconscious mind. And so when we have these stories in our mind that are not serving us, they are causing problems for us, preventing us from learning or growing more, then that's where rewiring the brain comes in. That's where cognitive behavior therapy comes in, to find out what situations in our lives, what in our subconscious thoughts are preventing us from being the best that we can be. And so maybe just a thought right there, if you are struggling with wondering what in your subconscious thoughts are not working for you, you are welcome to go to my website. Right in the middle of the front page, it says, take the free assessment. That assessment will tell you what your subconscious thoughts are dictating. So that's a good place to start. What in my subconscious mind is preventing me from being the best that I can be? So, knowing that a lot of times the things that we believe or the things that we automatically do are causing problems for us, it can cause problems in any of our relationships, whether that is marital, friendship, parenting, neighbors, parole officers, whoever it is, may cause problems in our lives. And so a good way to, once you take this assessment, or even if you already know that there is a thought in your mind that's not working for you, you can just take a few minutes and maybe jot down some distortions about these thoughts. Like, for example, this little boy, maybe his distortion was that all markers are bad. So no matter what in life, it's all or nothing, all markers are bad. That's a distortion. Sometimes we feel like everything in our relationship is bad. Is it really? Is it really bad? Or is there something there that's good? Is there a marker there that's better than another marker? Something to think about. Another distortion could be overgeneralization. All markers are bad, and so we should never, ever, ever use them. That's kind of viewing negative events as a never-ending pattern of defeat, to be overgeneralizing some of our negative thoughts or some of our subconscious thoughts that are not working for us.
So this sounds a little bit familiar to what we were talking about last week during the challenge, which was one of the functions of the minds, or dysfunctions of the minds, is misperception, is what I was calling it. And you're calling it distortion, right? Which is basically the same thing. So how is it what you do? Like, you know, from my perspective, and the way that we approach it is bring consciousness and use all of these tools, journaling, breathing, all of these things to become aware. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is to have, you know, someone who can help bring some clarity. As a matter of fact, during the challenge, someone asked a very insightful question. I forget who it was, but she said, you know, I was observing, I was doing my homework that you gave me, which was sit for 7 minutes and watch and see what is my mind doing, imagination, memory, perception, or misperception. And she says, how do I know what's misperception? And I'm like, that is the $1,000,000 question, right?
Yeah.
Because how do you know you're distorting reality? How do you know that what you perceive is not correct? Because all you have is this, blue color glasses, and what you see is what you see. And yes, it's there due to trauma or protection mechanisms or all of these other things. But so my answer was, from my yogic perspective, it's like, okay, get a teacher, whether it's a yoga teacher, a priest, a rabbi, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, somebody who could actually help you see a different perspective so you understand that you're misunderstanding. But also train the mind to stay in a neutral place and just kind of observe what it's doing and why it's doing it, and separate the emotions and the feelings, so that was kind of like my 2 cents on it. But I'm very curious and just fascinated, and can't wait to hear, like, how is it that cognitive behavioral therapy helps with this misperception situation, the distortion situation, as you call it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like a combination of all the things that you were just talking about also. Biggest thing is about cognitive behavior therapy is to help you realize how these things are affecting you. And maybe a simple story would be to ask some of the closest people to you. Like, for example, if you ask a child, they're always honest. They are straightforward. They just, they tell you everything. Especially if they're your own children, or even if it's children in the neighborhood or whoever. I had this one father say that he had a good relationship with his kids, but he felt like there was something that wasn't quite right, because he could visually see their reaction at different times. So sometimes the eyes just showing us, do you get the same response over and over again and it's not what you think it should be? Then maybe your subconscious thoughts, your story that's there is not serving you. So I asked this father, I said, I want you to go home and you ask your children, what is one thing that you do not like about me? And this little girl said, I don't like that you scream at me all the time. The first thing the father thought was, I don't scream. And then, but he decided, okay, I'm going to take her answer and think about it and see if I really do. So he thought about it for a while and he realized, yeah, he screams. He really screams. And so I helped him with steps to overcome that and to be more aware by watching other people, by getting the reactions. How do you feel? Are you constantly unhappy? If these things keep coming up over and over again, then there's something in your subconscious mind, a distortion, a misinterpretation, whatever you would like to call. There's something there that's not serving you, that's not working.
So basically you're saying that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the way that you help to reshape this behavior and this perception is by having others, observing how others look at you, basically. Like
that's a start. Yes, that's a start.
And then
I do.
And then based on their feedback, doing some self-examination and then changing the behavior and trying to see if it is true and maybe their perception. Because, this actually brings up another side of this coin, which is a lot of the times we feel like we have had this wonderful, perfect childhood, right? Yeah. But to this little girl in this example, her father was yelling at her. And maybe that was not his intention and he didn't even realize, like, I'm a loud person. I could come out as screaming and maybe I'm not, but that's just like the tone of my voice. And yet to the little child, it feels threatening, it feels scary, it feels like, and it could be, traumatic. And that's a strong word, but that is the correct word. I feel like
Yes.
that, it could be as simple as it is, something that's misinterpreted because she's so small and her ears are so sensitive and his voice is so loud and he's so big. Now, all of a sudden, she feels threatened, right? And
Yes.
so it's misperception on both ends, right? Except he's the grown up, he's the conscious one.
Yes. Yes. I'm glad you mentioned misconception on both sides, because if one person tells us that we're not good enough, then we need to think this through. Is this because they feel like they're not good enough? Or is this because there's something about me that I need to be aware of? And so you do need to ask those questions. But part of going through this life and part of learning to be with people is learning to understand all areas and be open to change if it is needed. If there's really a distortion there in your mind, why live with the misery? Why live with that constant thought?
And at the same time, if it's a distortion on their end, if you have clarity within and you know where you're coming from and you're standing in solid moral ground with, peace and love and stuff, then you understand, okay, that's their distortion. It's not personal. It's not directed towards me. I don't have to be hurt by it. It's just where they are. And then you can just respectfully respect their distortion. If they're open to being corrected and they're open to seeing something new, maybe you can. But if they're not, then sometimes leaving them alone is best.
Yes.
But the discomfort, the internal reaction, your reaction to their misperception, to their distortion, is yours to deal with.
Right. That's very true. I love that perspective. Yeah. And yes, that we can choose to take offense, or we can choose to understand that coming from the other side, they are speaking from their own experiences and their own fear and their own subconscious thoughts. And so we should not take offense, which is one of the biggest problems in communicating with people, is taking offense to everything everybody does or anything anybody does or says.
Now, from your perspective, why does that happen?
It's, again, just from what we have stored in our subconscious thoughts. If one of our subconscious thoughts is that we are not good enough, and somebody makes a comment about, well, that so-and-so person doesn't know what they're talking about, we can internalize that and say, oh, they must think that I'm not very good either. And so we tend to hide, shy away, climb under a desk and scream, or whatever the case is. Whatever introverts a lot of times tend to revert back into themselves rather than reaching out and saying something like, it sounds like you had a hard experience. Reaching out, go beyond what you feel safe in, and realizing, you know what, they're speaking about another person because they think the other person's not good enough. Since we speak from our own experiences, more than likely that person is feeling like they're not good enough. So what can I do to help them feel better about themselves? So that's kind of like a double-edged sword. You can choose to be offended and run and hide, or you can choose to reach out and love and lift and help another person.
Yeah.
So there's a stop sign right there that tells you something good could be here, or I can choose to feel bad.
So it really does depend on the perception, on your perception, and your perception depends on your level of consciousness and your level of love and acceptance and compassion and respect for yourself. The stronger you are in that sense of self, from a healthy place, not from an egotistic, dysfunctional place, but from a healthy sense of I am me, I love me, I respect me, and I respect you as well. But you can't even respect others unless you have that level of respect for yourself as well. So then
There,
when you're trying to work on a relationship, if you're both trying to get love from the other, respect from the other, and you don't have it from within, you're always going to have a gap there because you're trying to get fulfillment from something or someone else. You're trying to feel loved, you're trying to feel respected, you're trying to feel taken care of and secure and nurtured, and they don't even have it to give.
that's true.
You know?
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And then they're expecting the same thing from you, and it's this constant like void, when in reality the way that it's supposed to work is I do me, I love me, I mind me, I take care of me, I make sure that I'm where I need to be, as functional as possible. And from that place, because I have unconditional love for myself, then I can unconditionally love someone else without the expectation of, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be reciprocity and respect. I'm just saying that it shouldn't be the glue. That shouldn't be the
Yes. That is so true.
Yeah.
Very, very good point there. Would you like me to, I have this sounds strange. I have a formula for communication.
Yes, I would love to hear that.
Would you like me to share that then?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's kind of like a 5-step formula. And so with these, it makes it so much easier to listen to understand, not listen to tell your story, but listen to understand. And then when you get toward the end, if they are ready, then they can be ready to listen to understand you. So this formula kind of helps you get what you want and give what they need. Does that make sense?
I'm listening.
Okay. Number 1 is name that emotion. And that would be an example like if a small child came running in the house, slammed the door and threw himself on the floor, screaming and yelling, and maybe even saying, "My teacher is a cow." And so but you don't make any comment at this point about how rude he is being. You are going to find out why he's going through this. So name the emotion. Number 1. You look like you are really frustrated or angry. There's number 1. Okay. Number 2 is invite understanding. So after you name the emotion, you say, "Would you like to tell me what happened today? What's going on?" So you're inviting the emotion, and here is still your opportunity to listen. It's not time to say, "When I was growing up, we walked uphill both ways in the snow." That's for another time. Right now, you're building rapport with this other person, and you're trying to understand. So 1, name the emotion. 2, invite understanding. And 3 is attending to their needs. And this one goes a little bit deeper. We all have basic needs. And we all have the need for respect. We all have the need to be appreciated, trusted, feel safe, people being dedicated to us. And we all have the need to be validated, like, "Sarah, I love your yoga classes." Or encouragement. And sometimes these things are, how do you encourage this person who's on the floor screaming and yelling and calling names? So attending to their needs, ask yourself, why would this loving child be throwing a fit and calling names? This kind, gentle soul, why would they be doing this? Maybe he feels like he's not respected by his teacher. Maybe he feels that he wasn't appreciated by his teacher. So if you think about these basic needs, you're trying to help fulfill these basic needs. So this person will feel safe enough to tell you what's going on. Okay? 3, attend to their needs. 4 is to raise the mood. And that would be, I really appreciate you telling me what's going on. Doesn't that make you feel better when you tell somebody, I really appreciate you sharing with me? So that's kind of lifting the mood. And then, or apologize. I'm so sorry you had to go through this at school today. That lifts the mood. Acknowledgement lifts the mood. Like, I know some days are not very easy. So that's acknowledging that every one of us have days where we want to go on the floor and scream and yell and call names. We shouldn't live there, no. But if somebody came to us and understood what we were going through, that would be so much easier to come out and be who you really are. Then, after you have raised the mood, you ask, is it okay if I share my side of the story? And that's where you could say, well, when I was growing up, if you share your side of the story, it needs to be very positive and uplifting. Not like, well, when I did that, my mother spanked me. Right now is not the time to teach. Right now is the time to communicate and make them feel safe enough that they will keep coming to you when they have a problem. At a later time, like later on that day, or maybe a week later, come back and say, I am still worried about the fact that you called your teacher a cow. Mm-hmm. Or it's possible that through this conversation, after you raise the mood, that this person was going to say, yeah, you're absolutely right. My teacher's not really a cow. I just didn't want to do my homework. And so when they tell you all of that, maybe you don't even need to tell your side of the story. Maybe you do. Or maybe it needs to be saved for another time. But if they say, no, I don't want to hear your side of the story, then the conversations end, you're through. If he's still angry and frustrated, you can start from the beginning. You still seem to be angry and frustrated. Is there something else that we can discuss? Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I always find it fascinating when, the humans, I call them the human systems, the Western systems, the logical, analytical, rational systems come up with these steps. And I'm looking at the list and I'm thinking, because I'm not a relationship specialist, right? My focus is you and your relationship with you. That's we fix you, everything else will just get fixed. I don't even want to start to figure out how to deal with everybody else, because trust me, they're not the problem. You're the problem. If you're suffering, you're the problem. So let's fix you. So I'm looking at the list and I'm like, that is interesting, because if I were to take that list, remember how I was doing the challenge and I was saying thoughts without emotions, emotions without thoughts, right? Name that emotion. So you see yourself, you can apply this list to yourself. I see that emotion. Then I invite understanding toward my emotion. Then I tend to my needs and see where the emotions are coming from. And then I can kind of work on uplifting my own mood and seeing, where I need. So I think it's beautiful that I think your relationships always start with yourself, right? And I look at this list and I'm like, this is actually a very systematic way to go about not just dealing with the relationships with others, but dealing with the relationship with yourself towards yourself. Because oftentimes we don't do this for ourselves, and we don't do this for ourselves. How on earth are we supposed to do it for anybody else?
Very true. Very true.
So,
and it seems strange to have a formula, but after you practice it, even if you practice it on yourself, practice it with everybody you can, it gets to be automatic. Yeah. And it gets to be exciting because they're telling you how they are feeling and what they need. And
Yeah.
you can help them rise above that, and that always makes us feel
Yeah,
better.
I'm all for formulas. I mean, just yesterday I was talking to Tammy. She was doing a live for us on the emotion code. If you guys haven't watched it, they're organized by topics on their tags, enlightening conversations together. You can go watch it again. And she was giving me a 5-step process to healing. And I don't want to say it right now because I don't want to get it wrong. But it was very enlightening to have that systematic approach. And it's very cute because as a teacher, as a yoga teacher, I teach like the most ancient like methods of understanding the world and ourselves, right? And to me things are just the way they are, but that's, we live in a society where rational understanding and the analytical mind are very, very strong. And sometimes, even though I'm trying to guide people to what their original state is, which is peace, love, respect, contentment, joy, um, and if you're there, then all of the systems are not all that necessary. It's like a ladder, right? You use the ladder to get to, and once you're there, you don't really need the ladder, you don't need the steps, you don't need the system because you're already where you need to be.
Yeah,
right?
Well, they are automatic at that point.
They're automatic, exactly. And so when I look at something like this and I look at the ladder and I look at the list and I'm like, that is a very helpful, rational ladder that can be so powerful and empowering for some people who maybe are not quite there yet and need a systematic way of steps to actually deal with the immediate problem. I still think we need to fix the source of the problem, which is why are you triggered in the first place, right? But
very true, very true.
But until then, instead of escalating the situation, you can take a deep breath, look at it, and say, I have a list of 5 steps. What were the 5 steps? Oh yes, name the emotion. Okay, I see you're angry. Invite understanding. I understand how you feel, and I understand that you need to be taken care of, or that you're scared, or that you don't feel safe, or let me acknowledge you, or whatever, give you some encouragement, whatever it is. And then from there, uplift the mood, and then if necessary, then share your story. But eventually, the truth of the matter is, if you are in a place of really wanting to understand and really wanting to respect and unconditional love and compassion, you might not necessarily need to share your story at that time, like you said, because it might not be the appropriate time, because they might not receive it in the appropriate way. So you might have to wait until their mood settles a little and they simmer down in order for them to be receptive to what you have to say and to listen to your story. Otherwise, if you share your story at that point, they're just going to think you're attacking them again.
Very true. Very true. And the reason that you ask if you can share your story is because you want them to be engaged. And if they say, yes, tell me, they're going to listen, and they're going to put that in their subconscious mind. Where if you don't ask, you just start telling the story, they're going to turn off.
Yeah.
So
and you're asking for acknowledgement of yourself as well, I think, when you ask, may I share my story? You are respectfully asking for, like, are you open to listening to me? Do you see me? Are you actually receptive to listening to my side of the story? Because if they're not, you're right. What's the freaking point?
Yeah.
What?
I liked that point because a lot of times we do not give ourselves permission to be more than what we think we are.
And I think a lot of times also we don't, like, we try and stand our ground and make ourselves heard from I'm here, I'm screaming, don't you see me? An angry, resentful place. Where if you take a step back, you're heard, you love yourself, you respect yourself, your opinions matter, all you're asking is, can I please share them with you? Are you there to see me, to listen to me? Are you open to listening how what you're doing affects me? Not from a place of like wanting to force your way and stand your ground and defend yourself, but from a place of like genuinely trying to open their hearts to see you, because you are a human being and you deserve to be seen and heard, but instead of like doing it from a pouting place, you're doing it for like, no, I'm just gonna teach you. Are you open to listening to me and how what you're doing affects me? you know?
Yep. True.
Okay, we have to begin to close here. We had a couple of people come live, and I saw them go like how many views they were doing, but we didn't have too many comments. So, if you watch the replay, then comment hashtag replay here on the comments, and feel free to put in questions and tag Kristena or myself so that we can answer with anything that you have. Any questions that you have. There is a link for a free guide. Can you talk about that free guide and what it does?
Okay, basically what it is, I call it the nature of life. And this helps you to become more aware of some of your deeper concerns or feelings. Like, what do you wish you have, or what do you have you wish you didn't have? Or what are you fortunate to have? And what types of things really do make you happy. So this is a great worksheet to help you become more aware of some of your concerns and what's causing those.
Oh, that is so fascinating. I'm gonna go download it. I have something similar. I would love for you to look at it too. It's called Free Spirit Quiz. Have you seen it?
I did look through it. Yes, I love that.
And that was something that I just literally woke up one morning and it literally downloaded through me, and I sat down and I wrote it, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is like genius. This can really help somebody. So what you're describing sounds like a system like that too. Again,
Yes.
to me, all guides and systems are helpful. Like however you want to look at it, wherever you need to come at it from, just dive.
That's right.
Yeah.
I also have a button on my website that's a free 20-minute consultation. So if anybody wants to call me, set up a time, there's free download. I have lots of blogs on different relationships, different aspects of life that are all free.
Oh, and that reminds me, on her website, she also has a link to her pottery. Kristina's an artist. Can you show them what they get if they comment on the replay?
Can you see it?
It's a little dish. It's a little coin dish. Get it a little closer. Yes. And she makes these at home. She's got an entire workshop inside of her home that's just beautiful.
On the inside is a melted 7-Up bottle.
Ah.
So it's perfect to sit by your bed, to put your jewelry in or coins for the night.
Cool.
Yes.
So if you comment either here on the live or you comment on the replay, hashtag replay, let us know if you find the guides useful, if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to check the announcements tab for anything that's going on in this wonderful community. And if you want to be a speaker on a Friday morning like we're doing here, and you have some, I want health and wellness topics and inspiring things like this that are valuable for our community. So, and don't forget to invite your friends to our community. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yep, thank you, Sarah. This is a great program.
I'm glad you were here. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching. Namaste.
Namaste.